Hey, everybody, we're back. We're going to talk about the Portland real estate market and mortgage rates and marketing stuff. And we hope it's as exciting as the tonality of my voice. Katie hated that. I
It's
did
all
too,
right.
actually. That was a big flop. Anyway, so let's talk about what's going on in the Portland housing market. My name's David Caldwell. I'm with Katie Henderson. We are real estate agents at Hillshire Realty Group. This show we do weekly is just kind of like our thoughts on what's happening in the real estate market, making fun of headlines, and giving the facts, and we'll go from there. So, year-to-date summary in the Portland housing market, comparing 2023 to 2022 through August, the most recent numbers we have, the average sales price has decreased 3% from $619,200 to $600,500. Does that mean every home's value has decreased? No. Have we seen some record sales this year on the high side? Absolutely. In the same comparison, the median sales price has decreased 2.7% from $550,000 to $534,900. Over the last 12 months, the average sales price has declined 1.2% from 603,200,000 to 595, 800,000. New listings are down 21.4%. Pending sales are down 24%. Closed sales are down 28.5%. If you're thinking about buying or selling, one of the things that I think is most important to know right now, about 25% of the homes that have listed for sale have not yet sold or accepted an offer. And there's about 2 homes on the market on average for every buyer buying on a monthly basis. If you're a seller, that means you need to be priced more competitively, or as Katie says, I love what the term she uses, you need to be palatable to the buyer. If you are a buyer, options are a great thing for you. Every buyer wants options. So that's a quick little market recap. Let's take it into rates, Katie, because last week we were talking about the rate headlines. Rates are up, rates are down. They're 2 weeks down. Where are they today?
Ooh, we're hovering right over 7%, which sounds scary because it is a little bit. Affordability is definitely a challenge, and that's a roadblock I keep running into with buyers, especially.
Yeah, I have pulled up right now actually from the MLS. They do quarterly tracking for the metro area of affordability. And basically what the formula is affordability is calculated from a formula from the National Association of Realtors. The formula assumes the buyer has a 20% down payment, is getting a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. This formula is during the month of June 2023, a family earning the median income in the Portland metro area, which was $114,434, according to HUD, can afford 84% of a monthly mortgage payment on the median priced home of $559,900. That's what it was in June. I think the biggest thing to look at if we get away from the formula and we talk about housing affordability in Portland, where the average and median sales price is against a 7% interest rate environment. I have a quarterly report that goes back to 2003, and we've never been, well, since 2003, we've never been in a less affordable marketplace. So while this marketplace has given some sellers a really good opportunity, on average, we are dealing in a more challenging market because of those 7% interest rates. I think 10 years from now, people are still going to look at housing as one of the best investments someone can make. Owning real estate has changed the financial picture of my life, and that is not a rare statement. Many people can make that statement. I'm always going to advocate that homeownership makes sense. 7% interest rates suck. It makes it harder to get into a house. If we have 5% interest rates and people are standing in line for houses, that also sucks because it makes it harder to get into a house. It's almost a choose your hard situation. And I'm not saying buying a house right now is right for everybody. It might not be right for you, but it might be right. And you might just need to have a conversation and do some due diligence on it.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think creativity is key right now too. We have to think outside the box and be like, hey, what are some ways we could get you into this house? Is it a rate buy down? Is it asking the seller to contribute to some of your closing costs to take some of that pressure off? We have to just kind of work outside of the bounds that we're used to, try to move some puzzle pieces around to get people into homes.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that you said it right on, you hit the nail on the head. How can we make housing more affordable in an unaffordable marketplace? And
Hmm.
a lot of great lenders have
Yeah.
great programs. There
Hmm.
are some not so good lenders with not so good programs. Like
Yeah.
the quality of the mortgage broker you choose to work with can dictate your outcomes.
Imperative.
Yeah, so if you need local lender recommendation, if you're thinking about buying or selling real estate in the Portland metro area, even if you don't want to buy from us because we have bad jokes, we can still refer you to a real estate agent. So, Katie, earlier this week, you sent me a list, and we're going to go through this list, which are basically like marketing tactics that we feel are effective or
Or
headlines, things
ineffective.
like that, or ineffective. Yeah, so let's just start going through this list that you sent me, and I'll let you be the quarterback since it's your list.
Okay, let's start. These are like phrases that I see often in listing descriptions. And I thought it would be fun if we just kind of go back and forth and um, relay what these make us think of. Do we use these in our own listing descriptions? And are they effective when potential buyers are reading them online?
Perfect. All right, do you want me to start reading down the list, or do you want to start reading down it?
You go
Okay,
for it.
first one, priced to sell.
Okay, so I probably would not use this right now because how do you know is the question I have for those listing agents. Because I have listed properties that I thought were priced correctly from the beginning, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes it takes more time. And the follow-up question I have for that phrase, price to sell, is like price to sell when? Price to sell in a week? Price to sell in 6 weeks? So it's pretty vague and arbitrary. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I don't know if I've actually ever used that since 2007. I might have at some point or another. If I use it in today's marketplace, it would certainly be on a property that was more affordable, and I would use it in a price point that I know there's probably heavy competition. Because I do think that what you say matters, and you can make incorrect statements, and it's okay. Like, not
Right.
false statements, but it's okay to be wrong and admit you're wrong. But I do think that people either don't look at the caption at all, right?
Yeah.
Studies show that most people are looking at the price, they're looking at the square foot, they're looking at the bedrooms, they're looking at the photos. They're not really getting deep into these headlines. Um, but if you're not price to sell and you use a price to sell headline, you're not going to fool anybody. So that's just the reality. Won't last long.
Well, yeah, it won't last long. I hope that's the case for these sellers and these listing agents. However, that's one phrase in a listing description as an agent you have to keep your eye on, because again, what is long? Is that a week? Is that 3 weeks? And if you're over the average days on market for the similar properties, you better keep your eye on it and you better be ready to take that out of your listing description if it's no longer applicable.
Yeah. I look at something like that and I look at it like putting in a multiple offer deadline and then not getting a multiple offer
Yeah.
situation and having to delete it. There's something in me when I'm representing a buyer, when I see someone who has the confidence of getting in a multiple offer situation and then they don't,
Yeah.
it just makes me feel like I can push a little bit harder. Like I might be able to
Sure.
capitalize on the discouragement because the confidence in a price from a negotiation standpoint, this wall you're standing on, and you have all your bravado that I'm valuable and I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. All of a sudden, the wind gets taken out of your sails a little bit, and it feels like to me like that creates an opening.
Yeah, I'm a fan of not setting a deadline until you at least have one offer in hand. But like you said, if you're setting a deadline uh, before you have an offer in hand, it just kind of gives this air of overconfidence, and everyone's just kind of sitting back, waiting to
Yeah.
see if you go pending by that weekend.
Yeah. These next ones on your list, I'm going to just start by saying I actually kind of like them. I'm going to group them together.
Okay,
We can talk about
let's
scenarios
see.
where we like them. And if you disagree, then disagree.
Okay,
Ready for your personal touch, lots of potential, a diamond in the rough. In
well,
yeah, let's just start with those ones.
yeah, so those phrases for me are very strong indicators that you have a project ahead of you. So they're good kind of goalposts, I think. If a first time buyer came to me, and let's say these first time buyers didn't have a lot of cash on hand for projects, and they said, "Hey, Katie, what do you think about the price of this property? It looks like a steal. We got to get in there." And I read those phrases, I would probably be like, "Ooh, okay, what do they mean by project or diamond in the rough?" Is like the HVAC system old? Is the roof in rough shape? Like, how much cash is this going to require to even take it to a level that's livable? So, um, those would be great indicators or exciting things to read if my buyer was maybe an investor or somebody with a lot of cash on hand or somebody who wanted to
Sure.
take on a project. But for a first time buyer who maybe doesn't have as much cash available, I would tell them to maybe take a step back.
Yeah. See, and I look at those and I'll give it a little bit different perspective because I can envision some of those headlines on like one of my favorite houses to sell. Anyone who's willing to take on a little bit of a project is Grandma's house. And I'll describe the Grandma's house that I like. Grandma's house is outdated. It might have gold carpet, but it's really nice carpet. But it has new windows and it has a new furnace and it has a new roof. And she's painted the exterior. Maybe it's not the color that you want, but there's this grandma's house that has this amazing pride of ownership. It's just original. And if I'm someone who's willing to put in a little bit of sweat equity, I'm willing to paint on the weekends with my friend. I know how to build a deck. I can do some basic home improvement projects. Those can be really great houses for people to purchase under the right circumstances. But you're right. Like I see those headlines and I think, okay, this house is going to require a little bit of work. But I
Mm,
also think it's okay to start a conversation that way because I'm going to look at most of these headlines and tactics as setting the stage for negotiation.
sure.
If
Yeah.
I'm saying there's potential here, if I'm saying this is a diamond in the rough, if I'm saying it's ready for a personal touch, you know, you could be just setting the stage that, like, hey, we're priced according to
Mhm.
condition, we're priced according to the market, right? Maybe that is good language instead of price to sell, right?
Yeah.
But it's connecting a little bit more to condition.
Yeah. And I
Um,
don't think those are bad houses to look at. It's just how much is this going to cost out of pocket? And do I have the funds available to execute these projects to make this home livable?
For sure. And that's what you're pointing out is the biggest single problem in today's housing market. Do people have the funds for down payment, rate buy down, ongoing mortgage payment, and repairs?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to skip down the list a little bit. New price, message me for details coming soon. Let's lump all those in together a little bit.
Okay. So I think formally we would more often see the language like price reduced
Mhm.
or I don't know what were phrases that were more commonly used previously. I feel like new price is kind of trending now.
Yeah, I was on a coaching call with a client the other day, and we were trying to think of all these different ways to say just listed, right? Or similar to new price. There's not a lot of ways to say it, right? I'm thinking of this though in terms of create a framework. This probably isn't as much in the MLS. This is maybe on someone's Instagram because the message me for details. We can't put message me for details
On the yeah.
inside the MLS. So this
Mm-hmm.
is I'm scrolling. New price
Mm-hmm.
coming soon. Message me for more information.
Hmm. Yeah. Coming soon, I think definitely creates some anticipation. You're like, ooh, what's around the corner? What is this going to look like? Um, I got to be the first one in there. I think it can be an effective marketing tool, and coming soon
Good.
is actually a status in the MLS that some agents elect to use. I know some agents who don't like to go for coming soon. I think it just depends on the property and the situation. Something like message me for details is definitely a way to start conversation and engage. So I think that's why a lot of agents like to use that on their social media. And we just like to talk about real estate and we love a DM. I do.
True. True. Well, let's talk about new price from a different perspective. And
Okay.
I had a client on the market and their house was slow, right? Just slow. And we were talking about would a price reduction work or wouldn't? And the reality is we didn't know. But I told it in the story I told, and the way I always think about changing a price is, I like to shop at Banana Republic. That's where I buy most of my dress clothes from. And I'll see a shirt that I like, and it's probably just the same blue shirt I already own in a different fabric, but whatever. I'm going to buy that shirt probably on some timeline. I will never buy anything from Banana Republic without a discount because I know the discount's coming. And I know the longer that shirt is on the website, the closer I am to the 40% off day when I get the $90 shirt for 60 or whatever. And we talked about that where home shoppers are the same way. They start looking at a house online, not selling. And sometimes it is that new price. It's that price movement, even if it's not significant, that gets that buyer off the sidelines to go look at the house and or is what prompts them to make an offer.
Hmm. Yeah, and when we talk about pricing, language like new price or price to sell, it creates some urgency, I think, in buyers. Like you talk about you being a Banana Republic shopper. I'm a Nordstrom girl. I used to work there. The anniversary sale, there's early access, and you have to be a card holder to be able to access these anniversary items. They're exclusive to the anniversary sale. They're not clearance pieces, they're anniversary pieces. And you only have, I can't remember, like 2 weeks or something to shop these exclusive pieces. So it creates some urgency. It's like I have to get in there and I have to get these pieces before the other shoppers get to them and before the prices go up to full price after early access is over. Um, Kind of same thing with houses. I use that explanation when I was talking to a seller. It's like, look, we have to create this kind of compelling pricing story and create this urgency among a larger pool of buyers. So
Yeah.
I think it's a really creative and effective marketing tactic. Pricing is part of your marketing.
Yeah. Let's talk about some some of the offer things you put in here. Um, Highest and best, no escalation, offer deadlines as is. Let's talk about as is first, because I love talking about as is. And you specifically said that we need to talk about this.
Yeah, as is kind of funny. You do probably a better job of explaining it, but essentially you're kind of always buying a property as is, and um, the inspection window is really just a contingency to see if the seller is willing to make any changes to the property, and if they're not, then as the buyer, you reserve the right to back out of the transaction during that time.
Yeah.
I'll let you kind
There,
of
yeah, there,
piggyback off of that.
as real estate professionals, the offer that you make is a form. Now there's two form companies, but the prominent form we use, most realtors agree to use it. Almost, it's very rare in any year we see a form outside this form. And for as long as I can remember, more than a decade, there is a section in the contract that lays out the property is being sold as is.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
become very popular in the pandemic for people to write in that they were buying the property as is, but the contract already says that it's as is. And there's an inspection contingency in the contract. And unless you're willing to waive the inspection contingency, you can still terminate the contract and or negotiate repairs, even if you wrote in that it was as is. It doesn't eliminate that opportunity. So it's a nice function when a buyer writes into a seller that they're willing to take the property as is. It's a nice like handshake promise if they write it in. But it's already actually in the contract. And I've actually loved pointing that out to agents in multiple offer situations or just in regular offer situations. Did you know the contract's already as is? Because going back to like setting the frame of a negotiation, if an agent overlooked that, which I can tell you that many do not know that that is in the contract, that's just one of those places to create a level shift, right? In order to negotiate, the strategy of negotiation sometimes is, do you have more trust or knowledge? Person with more trust and knowledge wins. Sometimes one that's the biggest pain in the ass wins, that builds the firmest wall. But sometimes it's one with the most trust and knowledge. So, the as is thing, I always think is interesting. And I explain that to a lot of my clients. When I see as is, I actually go back to where you were talking about, Katie, the lots of potential, diamond in the rough, envision yourself here. When I see in the MLS, it's as is, I think problems.
I'll tell a story really quickly about a transaction I pretty recently closed. Great home, built in the late 90s, super quality construction, um, being sold as is. That's what was in the private remarks, only available for agents to read. And I explained that to my buyers and just said, hey, this property's they're saying it's being sold as is, so this seller really is not likely to do any repairs. This seller may be open to price reduction or some kind of credit, but you're not going to do any repairs.
Yeah.
We go through the inspection, and there's some pretty significant issues that now the seller is going to have to disclose to buyers if the home goes back on the market, because now the seller has knowledge of it. And my buyers just were kind of like, look, like, we're drawing a line in the sand here. Like, this seller can fix these items or we're out. And so I went back to the agent and I just said, look, like, I know your seller's expectation was not to do any repairs, but guess what? Now you have knowledge of these pretty major issues and you're going to be required to disclose them if you go back on the market. And luckily, this agent was very open to working with us, and they were able to find professionals to conduct the repairs who are willing to take payment out of escrow. The seller went ahead and did the repairs and all went well. But I think when you see as is, maybe there might be room to negotiate a little bit. That might not be the case with every seller, but in this case, we were able to come up with a solution to a problem and we were able to get buyer and seller eventually.
Yeah, unless you're waiving your inspection contingency, the reality is that door is open to negotiate.
Yeah,
And if
totally.
someone tells you otherwise, the seller is not bound to do any repairs by law, but the buyer is not bound to proceed. And at one point, one of those parties is going to have to talk about what to do. Let's talk about offer deadlines real quick, because I think we could talk about it in a similar context. Offer deadlines. In 2021 and 2022, when the market was frantic, in certain price points today in the Portland metro area where the price point is frantic, putting an offer deadline when you list the property for sale is the right thing to do. It's the right expectation to set with the consumer. It was the professional thing to do. It was nice to have that updated. In a marketplace like we're in today, I would probably only create an offer deadline once I had multiple offers in hand. The thing that makes me nervous in a market or a price point that's moving at a more normal pace or a slower pace and putting in an offer deadline is the buyer that doesn't want to be in a multiple offer situation. Am I going to scare them away? And we've all heard someone be like, I'm not going to be in a bidding war. And a bidding war in a multiple offer situation is the same thing. And we know that there's a segment of our consumers, there's a group of people that the thought of being in a multiple offer situation is just going to make them turn the other direction. And that's what my biggest concern is around that clause in today's market. Unless I know I'm in a price point, unless I know I'm priced in a way that is going to present my sellers when the opportunity, almost the guarantee of a multiple offer situation. But I don't want to put, highest and best, multiple offer, or, offer deadline X date right out of the gate on a particular property right now, because I don't want to scare away a potentially amazing buyer that can't fathom finding themselves in a multiple offer situation.
A way to do it that's a little more personable and discreet. And to me, that means maybe not putting it in the MLS saying multiple offers, this is our offer deadline, etc. Something I like to do is if I have an offer in hand, go back through my showing time app. It's an app that we use, a lot of us use to schedule showings on our listings, and send a personal text message to the agents who have shown the property and say, hey, I know you showed 123 Banana Street last week. Thank you so much. Just so you know, we do have an offer in hand. If you have any questions for me about it, give me a call today. I think that gives you a higher chance of creating a dialogue and potentially giving your sellers some more options of offers to choose from. I just prefer that personal touch over putting a generic message in the MLS sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about escalations. Escalation clauses or no escalations. You have it written as no escalations.
So that's just what I see more often in the MLS. I don't know if I ever really see like bring your escalations because it can get a little bit messy when you have escalation after escalation on multiple offers. So I totally get why some agents don't like them. And if you're not familiar, an escalation clause could be something like buyer agrees to pay $2,000 over any competing offer up to $500,000 or whatever the sales price of the home is, something like that. But some listing agents just don't like to deal with them. So what's your feedback on that?
Well, I'm going to give away one of my trade secrets. My trade secrets. I've never said no escalation clauses because I want to know the highest someone's willing to pay.
Yeah.
And just because someone writes an escalation clause, it doesn't remove my opportunity to counter back their offer at their highest price.
Highest, yeah.
And many times in my career, that's exactly what I've done. Is I've just said, thanks for sending over a multiple offer, an escalation clause, but we just reject the escalation clause and counter back at the highest price. And you can only do that under the right circumstances, because you could definitely open yourself up to make someone really angry. But my job as a listing agent is to maximize the dollar amount that my client's going to earn out the door. And if someone's going to write on a piece of paper the maximum they're willing to pay, it's my job.
Cards on the table.
It's my job to get them there. So my take as a listing agent is, you want to send me over an escalation clause, please. Right? When an agent says they don't want to see that, okay. It makes it more of a blind bidding process, but I have a hard time seeing where that always behooves the seller, or it always it's always representing the seller, because I think at some point, if I'm writing my highest and best, it might actually be lower than what I might be willing to go up to.
Yeah.
I don't think those numbers are always the same.
Psychology.
Yeah. Okay, so we were on that topic for a long time. Let's just shift real quick, and let's just give like let's have you give a buyer tip, and then I'll give a seller tip, and then we'll call this thing a day.
Okay. My buyer tip right now is every property is not created equal. If you have questions about a property, text it to your agent and say, hey, what are the insider secrets on this one? How long has it been on the market? What is the seller looking for? Is there anything hiding in the private remarks that you could tell me that's not visible for me online? Do a deep dive, have an agent help you. All these sellers are in such different situations. Do they need to sell or do they want to sell? What's going on? Every scenario is so nuanced and we need to treat them as such.
Yeah, I agree. And, if you're a seller, I think the biggest thing that I counsel my sellers on when we're in transaction, when things get to a place that might feel a little difficult, is the trade and where they're going and what life looks like over there. Like, we have these Hillshire Realty Group shirts and they say live better on them. They have nothing to do with real estate or our brand. They just say live better, because that's what I think buying and selling real estate actually enables you to do. Is it enables you to go do that next thing in your life. And a lot of times on the way out of a property, it's easy to go, I want X. I need to get X amount of equity out.
Yeah.
But if you can't get the other part of the equity out of your property, sometimes that keeps you from going and doing the next thing. So in lots of scenarios, I was talking about this during the Great Recession over a decade ago. If you're able to get your capital out of the property, even if it might be more, it might be less than you think, but what is that enabling you to do? What's the next purchase? What's my life look like? If I move over here, what happens to my quality of life? A lot of times it's the equity we have in our homes is what enables us to move on to these next phases of our life. Now, some people move for bad reasons and it's sad reasons, but those aren't as common as people moving for pleasure, moving into their first house, moving into their next house because their family's growing, moving closer to their grandkids, moving to another state to enjoy a different quality of life and pace. That's a more common move. The seller that goes, David, I don't have to move. That's pretty much everyone we work with. We rarely work with someone who has to move, but it's that equity that's trapped inside your house until you find a buyer that allows you to go do these things. And if you're thinking about selling, I would encourage anyone to think about, what does that move look like? Am I
Yeah.
moving to a market that's appreciating quicker? Am I going to move into a house that's more comfortable for me and might be a better asset? Am I going to be able to sell? Maybe I sell lower, but instead of putting on a new roof on this house, I went and bought a new construction one. Those trades, I think people need to think about more. Still be connected to protecting your equity. That's our job too. But what does that trade look like?
Yeah. Just to add one more thing, you and I were on the phone with a client. We have their current house listed. They're bumpable on a new property, and we were talking about the potential of a price reduction on their current home, and it's not really what they wanted. And you just said, what's the trade? What's the trade for you? What's the opportunity for you on the other side? The price reduction on your current home may not have been what you wanted or what you had in mind, but what opportunity would you be unlocking for yourself and for your family if your current home sold in a more timely manner? So it's a really kind of interesting question, and it gets people's gears turning. But yeah, I love the phrase that you use. What's the trade?
Yeah, and look, here's another part too. Only you guys can make that decision. Like, one thing we told our client in that conversation is, this is something you and your husband need to talk about tonight at dinner or over the next couple of days and think about. And we can't make the decision for you. It was about laying out options to get to this next place in life. And that's what it is. That's the cool thing about helping people buy and sell real estate. Isn't as much the transaction, but like seeing what happens. That's why we've had shirts for a long time. Go on my Instagram, you can scroll back and back and back and see these live better t-shirts. And that's what these trades hopefully enable you to do. So Katie, how do people get in touch with you if they want to talk to you about real estate?
You can email me at katie@hillshirerealtygroup.com or follow me on Instagram at Katie Henderson PDX. Forgot my Instagram handle there for a second.
Yeah, and the easiest way to get in touch with me, just email hello@hillshirerealtygroup.com. If you guys like this content, we're trying to do it weekly. Like, subscribe, share with your friends. We know someone in real or that's going to buy and sell real estate this year. They might need our help. They might think this thing sucked, or they might like it. So share it anyway. And we'll see you next time. Well,